I guess, I mean, we've got some news here on Mark Emmert's decision on saying that the cross country championships can't go forward as currently planned here in Stillwater in November. So just maybe wondering if you can start us off with your reaction to that, maybe an opening statement, and then we'll take some questions.
Yeah, disappointing, not totally unexpected. We knew, a week or so ago that if we dropped below that 50% participation threshold, we would lose the current format for the championships. And, just kind of talking to my colleagues around the country, we kind of saw this coming, once we heard what the threshold was. So disappointing for sure, but not totally unexpected at this point.
All right, Dave, your first question is going to come from Jenny Carlson from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Doing well, Jenny. How are you?
I'm okay. Hey, even though, like you said, the last week or 10 days has probably been pointing towards this, just what's on a personal level your reaction to not having a fall cross country season? How have you communicated, and what's been the reaction from your athletes as they've sort of processed this in the last 12 hours or so?
I think, for our athletes, like all the sports, I think that, this is really disappointing to them. I think they worked, incredibly hard all summer long trying to get ready for the season. They already missed their track season, the end of their indoor track season, their entire outdoor track season. I think that was really hard for a lot of them to process and deal with. And they're almost, I don't want to say rudderless, but just kind of flowing through the last 6 months without, being able to do what they love to do. So I think that's tough. On the other hand, we've talked about we are going to figure out some way to have a competitive season this fall, and then maybe a NCAA championship season in the winter or the spring. And so I've told them we are going to run a 10,000 meter race for the men and a 6,000 meter race for the women on our home course on November 21st, the date of the national championships, whether it's just us or us and a couple other schools in a scrimmage or in some limited season that does not burn eligibility. We're going to have some competitive opportunity on that date, and hopefully some others to go along with it. I think, they want to compete at the national championships, but more than anything, they just want to have the chance to compete. So we got to find some way to give them, some reward for all the work they've put in over the last 6 months.
Is there just a follow up on that? I mean, obviously we're still in the middle of a pandemic, so obviously everybody acknowledges that. Is there a level of understanding, or is it just like you said? I mean, these are the same, young men and women who lost out on a track season, before it really started. Like, is there just a level of frustration that sort of, clouds over just, the fact that we're still dealing with a pretty dangerous situation?
Yeah, I think there's some frustration for sure. I think they're very intelligent people. They understand kind of the lay of the land of what's going on. I think, some of them pay more attention to the news than others. So, as a group, I think they get it. It's still disappointing. And I think many of them feel, and I share this belief, that probably having that sport out there and the possibility for competition is a real motivation to avoid situations that might be risky, right? I think as soon as we say, hey, we're done until January, February, or March, it's really hard to then completely isolate yourself, socially distance yourself, avoid typical college socialization activities, all those kinds of things that might happen in a college town that might seem attractive or fun. I think these athletes can put that on hold and have the stamina to stay away from it if they've got competition as something to look forward to. But when you take that away, I think they've been told for 6 months that this isn't dangerous for you, that you're not likely to get it. And whether that's been true or not, that's been kind of the message out there in the media. And so I think in my mind, what I kind of get from them is that if there's not competition, well, I might as well go ahead and, socialize a little bit more. And I think that's a lot more risky than, going on a run.
Thanks, Dave.
Next question comes from Jason Elmquist of the Stillwater News Press. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Jason?
Thanks for taking your time this morning. you kind of touched on something that I think is going to be important, I'm sure, for a lot of the athletes. The opportunity to compete, but not lose eligibility because obviously they want to win a national championship potentially. How important is that, and what's the factor of that going to be for you and for your athletes of making sure that there isn't a loss of eligibility and a loss of possibly vying for a national title because you guys decide to go forward?
Yeah, I think the two most important things for any athlete, or from my perspective for any athlete, is number one, their health and safety, which we've got to, obviously protect. And number two is their eligibility. And their seasons of eligibility are incredibly valuable. And to them, they get 4 of them, right? And I think sometimes they come as a freshman, they go, I got 4. It's a long time. But they get to be sophomores, juniors, and seniors and think, man, I've only got 1 or 2 left. And it's incredibly important to them. So I've told each of them that no matter what, we don't know what's going to happen at the conference level, our institutional level, or at the NCAA level in terms of what we're going to be allowed to do, how rules are going to be kind of relaxed, and what that's going to look like. We've got the scenario where we could have, it looks like, based on what's come out so far preliminarily from the NCAA, we could participate in maybe 3 or 4 intercollegiate contests without jeopardizing eligibility. Maybe it means they have to opt out of something at the end. Maybe they don't. It's just kind of vague at this point. The problem is, if we do that, and then the NCAA decides to go ahead with a season in January, February, March, do the competitions they've had in the fall count against their individual limits in cross country for the spring, which would preclude them from doing the spring? So we got to be careful with that. And again, I don't want any athlete to put on the uniform and run and then be eliminated from the remainder of a season due to a cancellation by the NCAA or the conference, and a positive test, which takes them out for, health reasons, or being a primary contact, which takes them out, as we try to protect this or prevent the spread of the disease. Our policy is that kids who are primary contacts are going to be out for 14 days. Well, 14 days out of a cross-country season could, at the end, it could be everything. And in our sport, the national championships are the most important thing, and that's what we run for. And a season without some kind of national championship doesn't feel like a season, and I wouldn't ask any of our athletes to participate in something that doesn't have the opportunity for a national championship at the end of it, if it was going to burn their eligibility. And I don't think any of them would want to. Now, we will give them all that choice. If they say, hey, I'm in my 5th year anyway, and I'm going to graduate, and I got a job lined up, I'd prefer just to run. Well, then we'll let them, if there is opportunity, we'll let them run, even if it does burn eligibility. But those are kind of my perspectives on it. I think it needs to be up to the athlete.
Yeah. And then going back to the opportunity to have gotten to host as well, this has been years in the making. I mean, you guys have canceled, Cowboy Jamborees and stuff like that to prepare the course and stuff like that. I know you said you're disappointed, but the exhaustion that you and everyone has put into now, for the past several years, how just disappointing and frustrating is that aspect of it? Not just losing it, but knowing that all these years of work have kind of just been shoved to the side now.
Yeah, first of all, I think this sounds hyperbolic, but I think it's true. I think we've got the best cross-country course in the entire world, not the NCAA, not the US, but the entire world. Certainly we've put more money into it. It's gotten more value than anything in the world, for sure. And being a dedicated cross-country course that's maintained the way it is, and the way the running surface is, it's unbelievable. And I think our administration really wanted to show that off. We were going to be live on ESPN this year. I think that was for the first time, I think ever. I think that was going to be, that was something we're really proud of, that we're going to get to be the first championship on live on ESPN, and to be able to show off our course. So that's disappointing. I am hopeful that if we don't get to host the national championships in March, which there's already, that question's been asked, would we be able to do that logistically if it were a possibility? And I think the answer from OSU is yes, we could do that anytime, because it is a dedicated course. But if we don't get to do that, then hopefully in the next 4-year cycle, we get awarded another bid. We've bid on all 4 years, 22 through 25. I would hope we would get one of those. I think had it been a normal year, I was optimistic that not only would we have this one in 21, that we might have gotten one in the next 4 years, the one in 20, we might have one in the next 4 years as well. So maybe we lose one. Maybe we don't have this one, but we get one in the next 4. So I'm hopeful for that. I hope it'll be as soon as possible. Like 2022 is what I would hope for if we don't get it. But yeah, we want to show off that course, and I'm just so proud of it. And just, I think we've spent more money on cross country than any school in history. Not think, no. So, I'm just so appreciative and again, proud of Oklahoma State for really supporting the student athletes that do our sport and showing them that they are important to the university and the athletic department.
Thanks, Dave.
Next question comes from TJ Eckert from KTUL, which is the ABC affiliate in Tulsa. Go ahead, TJ.
Yeah, hey Dave, kind of hopping on, similar question there from Jason. What's that process like of getting that bid for that national championship? Is this, like he was hitting on, is this something that's years in the making? Is this something you guys have to prepare for years out just to get this? Can you kind of hit on that process?
Yeah, I think we got this bid in 2015 or 16. I can't remember now. I was actually on the NCAA committee at the time. I had to recuse myself and couldn't be a part of the bid selection because we were a school bidding to host. But they awarded it to us. I think at the time our course probably wasn't, well, not probably, it wasn't ready to host national championships. But just, I think the way the golf championships have gone here, I think the feeling from the committee at the time was that OSU does a really good job hosting national championships. Obviously, in that meantime, we got a second golf championship, we got a tennis championship, we got the cross country championship. And so even though we didn't have a course ready at the time, they trusted us to get it done. And, again, I think our athletic administration went above and beyond and spent, as you alluded to, years and millions of dollars getting our course to where the level it is. And really, like I said, making it the absolute best cross country course in the world. And so I told my wife this, who's a professor here, I said, it's almost, this whole situation feels like being a student, you got a term paper due, and it's due without a doubt on this date, you've got to get it done. And you bust your butt, get it done, you're pulling all-nighters, kind of finish it up at the end, and you get to turn it in, the last day is due, you walk into class, and the professor says, hey, I've decided because most of you didn't get this done on time, I'm going to give you a 6-month extension. And you're just like exhausted and think, okay, now we go back to work and improve it even more. But man, we spent a ton of energy getting ready for this, and now it's kind of pulled away at the end, and you're saying now you got more time. So I told that to the NCAA yesterday when they asked me if we can host in March. I said, yeah, you're just basically, our term paper's ready to turn in, and now you want us to extend to March. We can do that, but we can do it right now. So that's kind of the way I feel about it.
And just curious, do you have any idea of a financial impact on the city there of Stillwater of what a national championship like this would bring to the community?
We haven't done that study. Tallahassee, Florida has. Tallahassee and Florida State University combined in a partnership and built a course there. And they've done an economic impact study on their course as a whole. Now, they've had it up and running for several years, and they host a lot of meets there. But it was in the, I can't remember. You can look it up. I think it was in the $20 million range or something like that. I think the overall economic impact, it was something substantial over a few years. I can't remember. It was a couple of years ago I read that study, but it was significant for sure on the city of Tallahassee. So I'm not sure what the economic impact is here, but I think it's, you're bringing in 500 plus athletes plus probably 200 to 300 staff support that comes along with the team, plus fans, parents, your grandparents, high school kids that come to the city for 3 to 4 days and spend money in hotels and restaurants, a lot of kind of stuff. So it's a significant impact, especially on a town of our size.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for your time.
Our next question comes from Frank Bonner of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Frank.
Hey, Dave. Going back to what you were talking about and getting a possible another bid, when do those conversations start happening with the NCAA about getting another bid?
Yeah, those the NCAA Sport Committee has already processed all the bids. They've had their discussions and made their recommendations to the Competition Oversight Committee, which will be deciding that, in typical years, about now, maybe couple more weeks. But I think right now they've slowed everything down a little bit just to kind of see what the future is going to look like. I don't know if we'll hear an announcement, in the next few weeks or by the end of the year, but typically it would be coming in late August, early September of this year.
Thanks, Dave.
Our next question comes from Garen Emig of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Garen.
Dave, I was going to ask about the reference you made to running on November 21st, the date of the championship. Would you be interested in hosting a pseudo championship meet with schools who'd be interested, or do you want to keep that number? I mean, have you even broached just what kind of number you're thinking about there? Well,
yeah, several institutions from the SEC and the ACC have already reached out and said, could we host a tri-conference championship or a Power 3 championship or whatever you want to call it? Would we be willing to do it on our course? Some have already written out structures and proposals and defining what regions might be and all these kind of things we could do. So I think there's already, just in the 24 hours since we've heard this announcement, there's been a lot of discussion and interest in could we host and again, everybody kind of feels the way I do, at least the coaches I've spoken to, is that if we can do this and have some kind of competitive opportunity for our student athletes without burning their eligibility, we want to do it. And whatever that ends up looking like, we want to do it. And if we can have a meet, and I think the SEC has limited their competition to other Power 5 institutions due to the need for, similar testing protocols and all those kinds of things. So I think it might end up being something that would just be the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 if we did something like that. And I would be interested in that. I want to race anybody, anytime. So yeah, if they want to do it, bring it. If they can come, we can do it without bringing eligibility. Let's go. So I would love to do that.
Quick follow-up, if you don't mind. Sort of big picture with what's happened the last several weeks and the decisions that have been made in terms of football.
Yeah.
We've heard so often over the course of the pandemic the critical financial element that football brings to an athletic department in terms of non-revenue or Olympic sports. That being the case, how heavy was your sigh of relief that Oklahoma State and the Big 12 are playing football?
Like I said earlier, just watching activity around our campus, general activity, and I think telling football players, hey, you've got a game coming up. You've got to stay healthy. You cannot get your teammates sick. You cannot be a primary. All these things, there's incentive for them to not join the rest of the student body in some activities that might be a little more risky. And so from a safety standpoint, I truly believe that being out being in their facility, being at practice, is probably the safest thing they can do, and it incentivizes them to stay safe when they're out of the athletic department facilities. So from a safety perspective, I think it's great. I think it's probably better for all of our student athletes if they have season as an incentive. And then, outside the financial implications, I love college football. I mean, I just love Saturdays in the fall. I look forward to it all year long. It's Americana. It's part of life. It's a part of what we look forward to. I think it gives people hope and gives maybe distraction. It's just, to me, it's part of my mental health. So right. I hope we get to play. I hope everybody stays healthy. I hope we can do it in a way that keeps fans and officials and coaches and athletes safe. But yeah, I'm thrilled that we're willing to kind of maybe weed through some of the, I don't want to say hysteria, but some of the concern that, that you see in the media and sort of think, okay, factually and scientifically, where are we? And realistically, with a college kid and how they live their lives, what does having a season mean for them? And I'm proud of the Big 12 and Oklahoma State for, I feel like, being leaders in the NCAA in terms of saying, I think we can do this safely, and let's give these student athletes, what they've worked so hard for. So That's a long answer, like all my answers are, but I'm thrilled that we're at least going to give it a try.
But real quick, financially, did you need it to see football happen to feel good about the solvency of cross country?
You know, cross country is probably the least expensive sport in the NCAA.
Okay.
In terms of, we don't have our own scholarships, right? They come from track and field. So, okay, those kids are covered by track and field scholarships, the ones that get them. But we have very few. The men have 12 scholarships. We have about 50 men on our roster. We split 12 scholarships amongst those 50 men. So our team probably brings in more money to the university than it takes out. Maybe not to the athletic department, but to the university. If we're, we've got 12 scholarships and have 50 kids paying tuition and fees here, we're probably bringing in a net positive in terms of the money coming in. And then our travel, like this year, we're not traveling. We're out there on that course every single competition. Even before the pandemic, that's what we had planned. So it's a really inexpensive sport. You need 5 guys. We've got a Nike deal through the university that provides us our shoes and our shorts. There's not a lot of equipment. It's a pretty inexpensive sport. So, I think that obviously athletic departments that have $100 million budgets that are largely supportive of football, that's obviously an important factor. But for cross country, it's a pretty cheap sport.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dave.
Yep.
Next question comes from Jenny Carlson of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Dave, just wanted to follow up on a couple things. You had talked about the next bid cycle with the NCAA. Has there been any talk, though, about championships that have gotten canceled, possibly just moving back? I know that obviously contracts were signed, but has there been any discussion like, I know you're not involved with the tennis, but obviously that was lost there at OSU last spring, like taking championships and just moving them back a year potentially?
They wouldn't do. Yeah, they're not going to do that just because of in the entire NCAA is at the end of a bid cycle. Next year is the last year of the past bid cycle, right? So 2022 fall is a brand new cycle. So I think at least from the track and cross country perspective, talking to them, they feel like we'll stay on cycle and then give schools that have lost championships preference or extra consideration for the next bid cycle if you bid. And we bid for, like I said, every single year, 22 through 25. And I was hoping we would get one of those even with hosting in 2020. I would be shocked if we don't get at least one of the next 4.
Right. My other question is totally unrelated to that, but earlier this week when the Big 12 announced it was continuing with fall sports, there was talk about testing 3 times a week. And I think most people assigned that to football, but I assume that would also apply to your athletes. And then sort of a tangent from that, if that's true, now that the NCAA championships are off, is that level of testing going to continue, or what is your level of testing with your athletes?
Yeah, I think that's been kind of in flux since day one, kind of how that's going to look and what's safe and what's required. And, and those are conversations above my head. I'm comfortable with whatever they want to do. We need to test 3 times a week, I don't think it's that big a deal. I think the athletes, again, these are smart men and women, and they understand what we're trying to do, and that the absolute number one priority is keeping everybody safe. And I think we've got some coaches and officials in track and field that are going to be much more at risk. And so, I think we want to keep those people really safe. And I think the kids in our team understand that, and they're willing to do whatever. And if it's 3 times a week, it's 3 times a week. If it's once a week, I think we're comfortable with whatever the medical people tell us we need to do to be safe, we'll do.
Okay. So that has yet to be fully determined. And I know, I know that decision from the NCAA is so fresh and so new, but that's still a TBD for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's still in flux. I think that whatever we do, we will be held to the same testing protocols that football is held to. I don't think it'll be, it's one set of circumstances for one group versus another because there's a championship or not. I mean, whatever you call a competition, it's still a competition. So I'm assuming that it will be held to the same standard that football's held to.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Dave.
All right. If you have any further questions for Dave Smith, please click the raise hand button. Seeing none, Dave, if you want to just maybe take us out, any closing remarks, closing thoughts, anything else that you wanted to touch on before we end the call?
Yeah, first, I appreciate people being interested in kind of, reaching, at least listening to what we have to say about track and cross country. We don't get a lot of attention a lot of the times. And like I said before, we're super excited about the course. My coaching colleagues across the country cannot believe what we've done. And I've had so many of them reach out to me and, just honestly express their condolences, I guess, for the loss of the championship, and also say that they were really excited to get out here and run on and asking, especially the schools are still participating. We still want to come out whenever it is. We want to come out sometime and see your course and run on your course. So I'd stay tuned. I hope we have something that is competitive and exciting for the student athletes this fall, and then hopefully a championship in March.